Today we speak about food inflation. Not only are we going to break down the speech Carney gave today and all of his new benefits, but at 7:30 we are joined by the food professor to tell us what's actually going on. My name is Nico Lagan and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. So I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Carney today gave a 15-minute speech, 15 to 17 minute speech about how they're awesome. They're fixing all the problems that they've created over the past 10 to 11 years without ever addressing that it is their fault, blaming Trump for inflation, blaming COVID for inflation. But it was mind blowing. I listened to the whole thing and I was just taking notes of everything he was saying. I'm like, wrong, 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 wrong. Everything he said was either a blatant lie or a massive exaggeration or taken out of context, as in he doesn't really explain what it actually is, what the reality is. So, yeah, exactly. We're going to start by this exactly like Wilf is saying. Look outside looking in, look within yourself. He is full of beep. And I'm going to show you why. And this is why we're a bit late. For once, it was my fault because I literally identified, I think, 10 things in 6 minutes because I reduced just before we start the video, just so you guys know, the video is about 15 to 17 minutes long. I chopped it down to about 6 minutes because there's a bunch of stuff that was in French and not really relevant. I cut the unrelevant stuff and I kept a portion of the video as questions for Sylvain, because I don't know if you had the time to see it or not, the food professor, but I want him to tell us what he thinks. So the first part of the show, we're going to cover a portion of the of his speech was about 6 minutes long, and the rest we'll cover with Sylvain at 7:30. So without further ado, here is the video, and you'll see we're going to be stopping it a lot.
We're starting to fundamentally transform our economy, building a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canada. It's already getting results. Dozens of new partnerships abroad, launching Build Canada homes, fast-tracking major nation-building projects. Our economy, Canada's economy, has created 190,000 jobs on net since August.
Well, wrong. Actually, he did create 190,000 jobs since August, meaning September, October, November, and December. What he's not telling you is from January to August, they created zero. We had a flush amount of jobs. And what he's not saying is out of these jobs, 70, so out of those new 190,000 jobs, between 60 to 70 of them or 127,000 are part-time job. 54% or 103,000 of those jobs are government jobs. 41% or 79,000 were private sector. 5% of them were self-employed. So 54% are government jobs. 41% are private sector. 5% are self-employed. 60 to 70 of them are part-time jobs. And here's the funny part, 54% of them were from Alberta. So not even in the rest of Canada. And here's a fact that's going to blow the mind of most people out there. It's estimated that for every job created by a private business, the government is hiring 2 bureaucrats.
Hold on, let's go over that again. Every job, 2 bureaucrats.
Well, think about it this way. So what they're saying is that over
the bureaucrats is one of those jobs.
No, you're not getting it. Over the past few years, it's become standard in Canada that for every job that is created by the private sector, the government hires 2 bureaucrats.
Well, that seems unsustainable. I guess I'm not
you think? You think?
Call me the master of understatement.
Jesus.
To me, honestly, I feel like that's the only language I can really be effectively talk about what's going on now is just like, well, that just seems like really terrible policy. That just feels
it
like
is. It's not sustainable.
it's a recipe
It's
for
not
disaster.
sustainable.
Yes,
My
exactly.
2 cents. Nico, can you share
Yeah, I actually
where you
would
got
like
all
to
those
see
stats from?
that as well.
Hey, that would be a shit ton of work, but most of it comes directly from Statistic Canada. Like 99% of the jobs that I'm good. If I'm not mentioning where they're from, it's all from Statistic Canada. I use government statistics in order to make my point. There's only one reference that doesn't come from Statistic Canada. It comes from Fraser Institute, but their information comes from StatCan, from Statistic Canada. So
Sure.
all the information that we're talking about all comes from
What's the
Statistic
calculation
Canada.
you're doing for that? Are
What's that?
you just looking up jobs and then looking like jobs
Yep.
increases and then looking up how
Yep.
many government workers have been hired? And that's
Yep.
the number, right? 2 to
There's
1.
all those reports exist. It's just a matter of digging for them. And this is the beauty of having AI, right? You're capable of going through massive amount of numbers, but I confirm everything that I talk to you about. I don't come from one source. And I know most of those numbers
Yep.
I already knew. I already did the research myself through StatCan, and I just reconfirmed them now because I didn't do it in December. So they changed the numbers. Now let's continue the video because we're like 10 seconds
In absolute terms, that's more than the United States over the same period. We have the right plan. The world is knocking at our door, and momentum is building.
Bullshit.
But as the Minister of Finance just said, the biggest payoffs will take time. And many Canadians are feeling the pressures right now of everyday expenses. Canadians need a boost today and a bridge to tomorrow. And that's why Canada's new government has been relentlessly focused on making life more affordable for Canadians. On day one, we canceled the consumer carbon tax, bringing down gas prices by 18 cents a litre.
We're going to take a little break there because they did not cancel the consumer tax. They brought it down. It's still part of the law. We've covered this so many times. They can bring that back up anytime
that's important.
they want. But you know what's interesting about his statement is that he said that now Canadians are paying 18 cents less
and that's an important thing to mention. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is that it's the first time that they admit that it's 18 cents a liter because Trudeau for years, and I'm going to quote here, Trudeau for years have said that the tax, talking about the carbon tax, puts money back in the pockets of Canadians via the climate action incentive rebate. And 80% of Canadians are better off financially through the carbon tax. Now we have his economic advisor admitting that yes, it did reduce. It did cost us 18 cents a liter more, the carbon tax. And they didn't cancel it. They just swiped it down.
Slid it to zero. Yeah, I mean that's it's an important part of the puzzle. I mean, so yeah, it's important, I think, to sort of discuss the nuances of this because it's a lot of people don't, I think, get enough in the weeds where they hit top level understanding of every issue, and in order to understand a lot of these issues, you need that deeper understanding of what's going on because it's in the nuance where the true problems appear, right?
And that is exactly why I spent hours today going through the speech and questioning everything he was saying because I knew them to be wrong. So I have a bunch of other ones, so let's continue.
We then cut taxes for 22 middle-class Canadians, saving a two-income family up to $800.
Did you hear that? He saved money for 22 families. Obviously, it's a mistake. But he can't even get his stats right. Listen to this again.
22 middle-class Canadians, saving a two-income family up to $840 this year. We've cut taxes.
So he saved, obviously he meant 22 million Canadians, saving a two-income family $840. What's interesting is that he mentioned two working parents, so that means it's 420 that he's saving. And we don't know if he's calculating in Canadians, is he calculating the children as well? So if you're talking per Canadian, he's literally saving $100, like $150, give or take. Like, let's say 175 to $200 is what he's actually saving a year. And between 2021 and now, it's estimated that our food prices have increased by 27%. A family of four used to eat for a full year $14,000, and now it's costing that same family over $17,500 a year, and he wants to give us back 840. So basically, the policies of his government have increased prices by about $3,500 a year in food since 2021. He wants to give us back 840. And that's an accomplishment, right?
Yeah, the math ain't mathin'.
No,
Yeah,
definitely not.
Exactly.
For first-time
I don't
home
know
buyers,
if it's anything to brag
saving
about.
them up to $50,000 on their first home purchase.
He talks about cutting taxes on first-time home buyers, saving them up to $50,000. You will save $50,000 if your house is worth $1 million. The trap is that if your house is worth up to $1 million, Carney's offering a $50,000 discount on a market that he and Trudeau helped set on fire. So the same price, like an average price in 2016 for a house was $490,000. Now it has come up to $710,000 nationally. So it's like, it almost doubled. It's like 75% higher nationally, but in the GTA, and you're looking at 1.1 million. So he's saying
Wow.
that you have an increase in price of about, so on 490, so it's about 50%. You have $220,000 increase. So the price have increased by 50%, and he's talking about 50K. But here's where it gets very, very, very interesting is that right now, so let's compare the numbers of today to the numbers in the 70s. A first-time home buyer had an average age of 29 years, was 29 years old in 1970. Today,
Okay.
the average age
I think I saw
of the
this stat.
first-time home buyer,
Crazy.
38 to 40 years old.
Yeah, that's bad. And that means the average, right? When it's the average, that means there's a whole shit ton that's, 39, 41, 45, 50, just not numbers where you should be a first-time home buyer.
Since 29, so in 2019, 44, in 2011, my apologies. In 2011, 44% of Canadians aged between 25 to 29 owned a home. By 2026, that number has plummeted to 26%. So in the past 15 years, we went from 44% of Canadians between 25 and 29 owned a home to now 26. So it's almost half. 30% of Canadians aged between 18 to 34 are still living at home. And ownership gap for those aged 30-34 have dropped 59%, from 59% to 50% today. So almost 10% drop for the people that are 30 to 34. And that's around the first, my first house was about that, like between 30 and 34. So yeah. So you see how he does this the whole way through. He says things, but he doesn't actually explain what they mean. But it's absolutely insane when you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Out east, we've reduced, created 100, cutting them.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I was just playing the video.
Children, healthy meals, while saving
there you go.
on
That's
ferries
another one
in
here.
Atlantic Canada. As the minister just mentioned, we launched automatic federal benefits, which will help 5.5 million lower income Canadians get the benefits to which they are entitled, like the disability tax credit, and indeed the new measures that we're announcing today. We made the National School Program permanent, feeding 400,000 children healthy meals while saving their parents $800 per year on groceries.
400,000, that is 19% of the children that are estimated to need help in Canada. It's estimated that 2.1 million children need help. Their parents are food insecure. So 400,000 is, let's call it 20%. What you might not know, or you might already know, is that this program applies to permanent residents and new immigrants, so non-Canadians. A third of the kids receiving this help are non-Canadians. So out of the 200,000 kids that are being fed, they are not Canadians. And of course, it's paid by our tax money.
We also have a series of initiatives that will improve affordability by making structural changes to our economy. That's like building lots of affordable housing through Build Canada Homes. And last week's new strategic partnership with China will make available tens of thousands of affordable electric vehicles in Canada. Now, bigger picture.
EV, obviously, he just spoke about the EV market and the deal that he's trying to accomplish with China. That's about 50,000 cars that are going to be able to be brought to Canada with no tariffs. Turns out that EV cars only represent about 11.3% of sales. That's down from just 1 year ago from 16%. So today, 11.3% of cars are EVs, and it used to be 16 a year ago. And that's a question I want to ask you guys listening to this, because that's something I really remember. I really noticed when I came back to Canada, because I spent a lot of the last few years on the road traveling in the US. And look around you where you live and look at the state of other people's cars. Tell me where you live, because right now I'm in a normal area. It's the same area my wife grew up in, and it's very average. Like, nothing crazy. People are not rich. People are not poor. They're just regular families. And I look around, and the state of their cars is bad. Like, you can tell when people have extra money, like surplus money, they will splurge and buy nice things, like cars, for example. But look around you. Tell me that the cars are in that great a shape compared to even 10 years ago. It definitely, when you start looking around, it definitely shows that people do not have the money we used to have 10, 15 years ago.
Sure. Overall, inflationary pressures are easing. The consumer price inflation rate is back in the Bank of Canada's target range, and average wages in our country have consistently grown faster than the rate of inflation since this government took office.
We're going to stop him right there, because that is incorrect. It is between 2021 and 2023, inflation absolutely crushed wages. Real wages, purchasing power, fell by nearly 5%, while wages grew by about 4.4% in 2025. The cost of living, housing, and food has risen so much since 2021 that the average Canadian is poorer today than he was 5 years ago. And see how Mark Carney is very good at this. He takes some pieces of information, says them out loud, but he doesn't talk about the rest that you need to understand in order to get a valid like the facts, if you will. And the next thing I'm going to stop him on is the perfect example. He's going to talk about childcare.
Fees for childcare across Canada have dropped by around 35% over the last 3 years, thanks to our childcare program.
Okay, 35%. So is it true that they fell by 35%? Actually, technically, it is true. But 50% of parents now report having problems finding a spot. So, oh wow, you have all those great, you have that great program that the prices drop by 35%, but 50% of parents can't find a fucking place for their children. And I don't know if you saw that, but I was looking at this in the news this morning. It's reported that in Ontario, the Ontario government is hiring more and more unqualified people for their $10 a day childcare program. And that seems to be something that's happening all over Canada. They're hiring, they cannot find workers to work. So they hire people that are unqualified to take care of your children. They estimate that just in Ontario between 2022 and 2025, the number of unqualified supervisors in Ontario daycare jumped by 151%. So it just keeps on going up and up and up. So see how he's very good at, oh yeah, the prices dropped by 33%, but 50% of parents are having issues finding a place to put their children in.
The average cost of cell services
right,
has fallen by more than
40%. Super cheap for the tiny few people that get it.
Yes.
The whole point. The whole point is that, you know, who cares if it's really, really cheap for a very tiny percentage of the population? That doesn't help anyone. The whole point of a national program is that it helps a lot of people. And if it doesn't, who cares if it got cheaper?
And not only that, but you start looking at who is capable of taking advantage of those systems too. And it is just like the children program that we were talking about earlier. Let me read the national school program. A lot of people that are in those programs are not Canadians. So I'm not trying to be racist here. I'm just, you have programs that are paid by taxpayers' money for people that are not Canadians. I don't like it. That bothers me. That bothers the hell out of me. So let's try to finish this video. I don't think it's going to happen, but let's try.
Since 2020. That is, if you're able to switch plans. Gas prices have dropped by 14.
He said that our bills have dropped. Our cell phone bills have dropped 40% since 2020. Technically, yes, but only on paper. The stat that Statistic Canada is using is to calculate how much per gig are we paying. But we're getting so much more gigs, but turns out that your monthly bill is higher than it was in 2020. And of course, I work for cell phone companies. Their price aren't coming down at all. They're not. It's always going to get more expensive, no doubt. It's one after the other. Like you can literally, like we're not going to have the time because the food professor is joining us at 7:30, so he should be joining in very, very soon. But this is the part that, yeah, you know what? For lack of a better term, it pisses me off because he's very good at using numbers, and the average Canadian that does not do research will not question those numbers. They're like, oh yeah, they're real numbers. That's the truth right there. But when you start digging in, nothing that he said today when it came to numbers was actually accurate. Nothing. It's all yes, but.
Yeah. So, and obviously the but is where it's where the fine print is, as they say.
Well, you have to look at, man, that's going to sound wrong, but you have to look at the buts. Obviously, the buts in his speech, not the buts you're thinking of, but you have to look at the buts because it does matter.
You don't need to explain to us what you do on the weekend.
But see, those are the things. Like you look at all the numbers. He started by saying that he created 191 jobs. Turns out that 60 to 70% of them are part-time and more than a half are government jobs. So that's not real jobs. That's not jobs that are building the economy. Those are jobs paid by taxpayers. So it's more taxes that are needed to pay for more bureaucrats. I see that our guest has arrived, Mr. Sylvain Charlebois. Yeah. Can you hear us? Thumbs up if you can hear us. Well, there we have it. We are joined by Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, aka the food professor, to speak about exactly what we've been talking about, just to go into more detail, the food inflation. What is food inflation? What does it mean? Is it real? Is it all
Hey, Sylvain, how's it going?
just,
Hey
is it
Rob, how's it
real?
going? Good. I have a question. Is your
Not too
hat
bad, brother.
real? And how much did
Oh,
you
yeah.
pay for that?
Yes, it is real. I get
Oh yeah.
comments every single time I wear it. Yes, because you know what it
LA
is. It's from
Dodgers.
the Nordic.
Of course, absolutely. Yes. Go Nordique go. And I don't think they'll
Yes,
come back.
of
But
course.
anyways, because I was
Sylvain.
for holidays. My wife is from Quebec City, and we always have this debate. And because we go to the Grand Marché, which is right next to the Centre Vidéotron, which is
Yep.
really a big white elephant because, well, it looks like a big white elephant, and it hurts people in Quebec for sure not to see their beloved Nordic. But I don't think they'll ever come back. I mean, it's just the money's out of reach for a city
Oh,
like
yeah.
Quebec now.
I don't think we'll be back.
The-
No.
My, I'm
No.
not even the biggest fan of hockey. It's just that my grandmother, I'm the only boy of my generation. I have like 7 or 10 cousins. They're all females. And I was the only one watching hockey with her growing up, and her favorite team was the Nordique. And about 3 4 months ago, I was at the store. They had one left. It's a company that just bought old logos, the rights to old logos, and they print stuff. They had one. I was like at a Winners or a
Yeah.
Marshall looking for something. There's one hat
That's
hanging. I
probably good
recognized
business.
it from afar. I just grabbed it. So,
I
but I
like the
get,
last in October. I was in Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia. It's not a resort town. It's not a touristy town, and I saw a guy wearing an Nordique shirt,
yep.
and so I had to go and see him. I said, "Where did you get that?" And it was he's a person from Canada. It was an English Canadian, and he said he bought it at a store, and he was wearing it. He was actually on an exchange. He was a student on an exchange program in Colombia. So you see those shirts all over the world, really.
It's a nice logo. So,
I beg to
first
differ.
thing, well, it's a good thing I'm not asking your opinion. That's not why.
That's why I'm
That's
on your
not
show.
why.
You don't need my opinion on anything.
I don't need your opinion on the logos of the Nordique, but I definitely want to have your opinion on on Mark Carney's address, because one of the things that I know Pierre Poliev is talking about all the time, he even reposts some of your stuff, is food inflation. Food inflation. Canada has the highest food inflation in the G7. And today, Mark Carney had an address, like a 15-minute address. That's what we were just talking about. There's a couple of videos that I took from it that I'd like for you to look at. But
I've seen
let's,
I've seen the presser today from Prime Minister
awesome.
Carney, and last week was really interesting because on Monday new inflation data came out, and obviously media will go to experts. I've noticed it. They go to experts that would actually qualify numbers as less concerning, and they will downplay the impact of inflation. So mostly liberal academics. But then, so I
You
look
don't
at the
say.
numbers. I look at the numbers, and then I start to look at numbers around the world in the G7, and I was the one that came up, of course, with the ranking, placing Canada as the country with the highest food inflation rate among G7 countries, and it stuck. This time, it actually stuck, and a lot of people on the Tuesday, Wednesday, people started to say, well, hold on a second, things aren't really that rosy in Canada. Actually, we have a problem. We have a food inflation problem, and it got picked up by a lot of people, including Pierre Poilievre.
Well, I was sharing a number earlier. I'm just looking for the number right now. They were saying that since 2020, I just want to make sure, since 2021, it is estimated that our food prices have increased by 27%. A family of four used to spend about $14,000 a year on food, and now it's estimated that it's up to
That's all.
17,500. So,
That's all
is that
accurate.
accurate?
Yep.
That's accurate, huh?
Yep.
So, can you explain to
In our
us
report, it's in Canada's food price report. It's all there.
why is it? Because that's the part that most people don't want to address, or at least don't understand, is why is it happening here in Canada and it hasn't been the same in the US. It hasn't been the same in any of the other G7 countries. Because what are we, like twice the Americans, and the Americans are second worse in that G7? Is that right?
If last week's, I mean, that's why last week on Monday, I was really, I was upset because nobody was picking up on what was actually going on here. We have a problem, and nobody was alarmed by the numbers that were released by Statistics Canada. There were two shockers in my view with last week's numbers. One, Japan. 80% of what's consumed in Japan is imported. They don't produce a whole lot of food. So typically you could see food inflation go up and down quite a bit in Japan. So Japan is often really way up there. So, but on Monday we were learning that we were surpassing Japan. But what is worse is the fact that our rate is double of the US's now. So they're at 3.1%. We're at 6.2%. While they have a tariff-happy president. I mean, typically tariffs tend to push prices higher domestically. So that's when you see, if that's not a wake-up call for Canada, I don't know what is.
That's a very good point. I didn't think about that, because you're absolutely right. We have a 6.2 inflation. They have a 3.2, and they have a trigger tariff happy president that probably contributed to those prices.
But the one thing that, I mean, some of the economists last week, the liberal economists, were downplaying the 6.2 because, well, we had the GST holiday last year. And the GST holiday brought prices way down. So a year later, inflation actually calculates price hikes based on last year, right? So obviously, we were expecting a high number, and we did expect a high number. But here's the deal, Nico. If you unpack the 6.2 and extract the impact of the GST holiday, our food inflation rate would have been at around 4.2%. Still the second amongst G7 countries, still higher than the US, where there's a tariff-happy president.
So what is causing it? So at the end of the day, why is it that since 2021, a family of four is paying 27% more for their food?
Yep.
Why? What caused it? What's the reason behind it?
So the arguments that we've been hearing over the last several years are greed, climate change, cyclical, temporary factors. And, on the green front, I'm not saying there's no, I mean, I'm a capitalist. I actually believe that greed makes companies stronger. But the thing about food is that you got to be careful. There's a moral balance that you need to strike here. We're feeding people. So yes, companies should make a profit, but to a certain extent. And we've been actually monitoring gross margins for all the three big companies, Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro, and they've been pretty constant, to be honest. And if some of these margins go up, that's a sign that there may be some profiteering going on. But the fantasy has always been around greed in Canada. We've never actually looked beyond that and say, well, listen, maybe we have a structural problem here. For example, the industrial carbon tax, which is actually making our industry less competitive. For example, interprovincial trade barriers that actually don't allow our companies, food manufacturers, scale up and sell more food outside provinces into the US as well. Also, poor logistics. We're talking about potholes all over the place. Well, potholes may be, an inconvenience for all of us driving cars around, but for a trucker, it's a disaster. You can actually get your truck broken down for hours, and you could actually lose your freight. You could lose your cargo because you're running a cold chain. All these things come at a cost. The GST holiday last year. So, Nico, we feel that the food inflation rate would have been at 4.2%. The extra 2% was just not the tax. The tax was some of it, but the other part was the cost to actually adapt to a world with no taxes, both at the grocery store and in restaurants. So due to bad policy, we are seeing inflated food prices, and it takes years before you see that. It all started 18 years ago. 18 years ago, in 2008, under Harper, that's when you started to see this decoupling between food inflation and inflation, and we never recovered since. I think I actually told you last time we met, and we've never recovered. And that gap, that delta between inflation, the cost of living, and food inflation has only grown. Why? Because we are all in denial.
So what can we, because, before I ask you what we can do, Carney today was saying that he's gonna fix our supply management. And I'm not just talking about dairy, but the way that we obtain our products and be able to put it on the shelves.
He's investing
But if you
500 million
listen,
on supply chains. Yeah.
exactly, and he is also investing money in companies to be able to scale up to produce more closer to where the buyers are. Does that make any sense to you? Because before you answer, to me, the more money the government spends, the worse it is for us. Like I don't want benefits. I don't want, I posted this earlier, but this is exactly how I feel. I don't want any of your new benefit. I don't want your Canada Groceries an essential benefit. I don't want your GST rebate. I don't want your national school program. I want the fucking government to keep their fucking hands out of my pockets. That's what I want.
Welcome to Canada. So, Nico, I don't think it's going to stop here. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is how it is here. But I mean, was today's announcement encouraging? I'd say I can tell you right now that Conservatives will actually vote in favor of it. If you're expecting Conservatives to be against it, they won't, because it's too. So first of all, the things I like about it is the fact that it's targeted. So GSP, if you're getting a GST credit, you're not hurting a whole lot of money. Okay. And that's 12 million Canadians. Okay. So that's going to help people that actually do need the money. Now, the problem when governments tend to give out money like that, it tends to create inflationary pressures. It tends to make inflation worse. That's the problem. But we're not talking about a huge amount of money. It's some money. It's $5 billion this year. I don't think it's going to have an impact on inflation, but there is that danger. So that's one thing. The investment in supply chain is fine, but the role of the government is not to make supply chains efficient. The role of the government is to create conditions to get the private sector to do the heavy lifting. Okay. So is $500 million enough? I don't know, but it is quite a bit of money. And so that's the one thing that I'm concerned about. It's thrown around as a concept, but at the end of the day, are our supply chains resilient in Canada, and are they effective? Absolutely not. We have a long way to go, but you need to bring the private sector into the fold to do the work. Right now, Nutrien, the number one fertilizer company in the world, is Canadian. Nutrien out of the West in Saskatoon decided to build a $1 billion terminal where? In Washington State. Why? Because our logistics are pathetic in Canada. That's a problem.
It seems that it's everywhere. The past 10, 11 years of liberal policies have just added red tape and red tape and red tape. And I'm not saying that the Conservatives, Harper, were that much better, because you did mention that this whole
Harper
thing
wasn't good. Trudeau made it much worse. Worse.
Yes.
But at least, Nico, in Prime Minister Carney's defense, I actually haven't seen any major mistakes made by him or his government since April, to be honest. Yeah, I haven't seen any disasters like Trudeau.
Yes, but we all know that since 2021, at least, he was his main economic advisor. Like Carney was the main economic advisor to Trudeau. So let's not lie to each other here. Trudeau was never an intelligent person. He was
I
just
only
a
look
puppet.
at output. I only look at output. Yeah. That's your job, Nico. That's your job to politicize the issue.
Yeah, but that is still a
I won't
fact that
tell
he
you I
was his
disagree
political
or agree.
advisor.
I'm just telling you that it's not necessarily my
I know.
area of expertise.
You're a smart guy. I get it. So the thing is this fixable? At the end of the day, is it possible to fix? Let's say that you had all the tools in the world to make a change. Is it possible to make it better, or is it gonna get a lot worse soon?
It's going to get worse for sure. Like I'm expecting next month to get even numbers aren't going to be good. But we are expecting prices to rise this year by 4 to 6%. So it's not going to get better, but over time, I do think that we need a government with a vision for the agri-food sector in general. We haven't really seen that, honestly, ever. To be honest, so whether it was the conservatives or the liberals, we've been heavily relying on the United States for our processing. And I've always said we need a strong processing sector in Canada in order to become more autonomous and be in control of our supply chain. So that's missing. And frankly, I haven't seen a government committed to that yet. I'm hoping that at some point the current government will do that, or any government will do that. But until that happens, we can't really say that Canada is an agri-food power. It's an ag commodity powerhouse, but not an agri-food powerhouse like Brazil, for example, or of course the United States. But right now, I'd say I know there's a lot of chatter about China and the US and Carney going there and making a transactional deal. I think it was needed. He needed to actually allow canola to flow, to grow our economy out west. We needed a deal for our lobster harvesters. My only concern right now, and I actually met a couple of business folks over the weekend about what happened in the last couple of weeks. My only concern about what happened in the last couple of weeks is that I do think diplomatically that Prime Minister Carney went a little too far in moving away from the U.S. And that's going to cost us dearly, I suppose. I was at Purdue University in the fall, and one wise person told me, listen, tell your Canadian friends to stop paying attention to Lutnick or Trump, but start paying attention to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. And I've been doing that since. And every time he spoke, things happen. And this weekend, Scott Bessent was not kind to Prime Minister Carney, not 1 minute. And that's a big concern for CUSMA.
Yeah, that's what worries me the most, because it's between 950 billion to $1 trillion trade deal between Canada and the US. 76% of our exports.
You can't replace the US no matter what. And I know a lot of people don't like Trump and don't like the US, but at the end of the day, it's impossible to replace the US. So we have to work with them. But I do think that Prime Minister Carney, with using words like New World Order, strategic partnership with China, diplomatically, those are really heavy words with dear consequences. So and Prime Minister Carney is a smart man. He knew what he was doing. I think he wants to position Canada and himself as the leader of the anti-Trump world, which is fine for him, I guess, and that group. But for Canada economically and from an ag policy perspective with agri-food, it's a really risky game, very risky game.
Yeah, especially with a president, love him or hate him, that will throw his weight around. Like, he has the big swinging dick, like we've been saying, and he's not scared to use it compared to the other presidents in the past decades. And that's the big difference, is that he doesn't care. Oh, you want to do that? That's fine. That's
style-wise, yeah, I think he I mean, your assessment on policy is bang on. I actually do think that he doesn't really care at all. And but he doesn't care about globalization. I mean, Lutnick said it in Davos many times. He believes, and I think he was speaking on behalf of the Trump administration, he believes that globalization is a failed policy. And I don't agree with that, but they believe that, and that's really not a good thing for Canada, because we have benefited from globalization, because our number one buyer is America. I mean, everything you see around you in Canada, 60%, 65% of everything you see, houses, buildings, hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, everything is due to the money that came from the US. Don't forget that. You cannot forget that.
I can't disagree with you. It's, to me, like you said, Carney's not an idiot. Carney's a very smart guy. I read his book. I listened to what he say. I don't agree with him. He is evil, if you ask me personally. But he is. But one thing you cannot say is that he's an idiot. He's not Trudeau. He's definitely not Trudeau. That guy knows what he's doing, and the words that he's been using, like strategic partnership, he said that on purpose to irritate Trump. He
But the one thing
knew.
that happened today, Nico, just to go back to today's announcement,
Yeah.
I did get a sense that we're slowly going back to the
Yes.
Trudeau era of slogans and
Yep.
political theater. You know, we're going to give you a grocery benefit.
Yep.
That's important. It's not a grocery benefit. It's a GST credit, and you can do whatever you want with that credit. You can buy groceries if you want. You can do other things with that. But again, what I saw today in a grocery store, you know, talking about food, I saw Trudeau there, and to me,
Yep.
oh my goodness, are we going to go through a campaign
Yes.
again with
Yes.
slogans and things like that? I don't think. I mean, I have faith in the Canadian people. I actually think the Canadians are smart. They're not easily duped, and I do hope that that Canadians will actually call him out for, you know, for using props, and I think we're beyond that now.
And removing all the prices. Did you notice there was
I did.
no price of any of the
Oh,
article,
Nico,
all the fruits and vegetables, zero.
grocery in Ottawa is free.
And especially he had avocados in the background, so you know
Yeah.
that would have been 3 for $10.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was not sharing that, but just when you know that his team went in to prep the store and remove all the prices, that reminded me of Trudeau. That is Trudeau 101 right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I was a little disappointed because I see Carney as an intellectual and someone who's refined and will be authentic. But I started to see the liberal flavor affecting the Carney image a little bit. So I don't know if that's going to continue or not. But anyways, whereas Pierre Poilievre, he's been pretty consistent, you know, and frankly, I just hope that Pierre Poilievre will stop attacking Trudeau, because he's, well, not in government anymore, and start focusing on Carney and his cabinet, really.
There's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you, and I'm just gonna this one because you're French speaking too. Did you notice that every single time Carney has something really bad to say, he says it in French? Did you notice he did that today when he was sharing numbers because of the food bank? He didn't say them in English. He said them terribly. Many has a terrible French,
No,
but he said it.
he's not good in French, no.
But have you noticed how he switches from French to English? And every time he
I
speaks
must say
French,
I have not. I have not. No,
pay,
you noticed
pay
that?
attention. Oh yeah, he did it like 3 times today, and every time he did it, it wasn't good. He shared numbers like the 2.1, 2.2 million families that are going monthly base, if I remember correctly, to food banks. And then in English, he says, I'm going to invest $20 million. But he
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
say that $20 million is a joke. You're talking 2.2 or 2.1 million, I think, right now.
And
Food banks
I've
is
heard
saying
some
on a monthly
criticism
view.
about the 20 million given to food banks, and you may disagree with me, Nico, but I'm a big supporter. My wife and I, we give the food banks. We're big supporters of food banks. I actually think they're a miracle of the human spirit. What they do with little money is unbelievable. I've been to food banks. I've actually been to their conventions. These people are unbelievable. With $20 million, they can do what a government program can do with 150 million. It's just, you optimize the impact of that money, and you and I can't do what they do. They can actually make that money work quite a bit. And so really, frankly, I think the $20 million was money well spent compared to the $5 or $9 billion that the entire program will cost over the next several years.
It's one thing we do heavily was to give our time in food banks,
Oh,
organize
absolutely.
lunches, like
If
actually
you can
br-
give,
collect
and it,
food,
yeah, actually
organize them
give
in
money.
bags.
Food is
Yeah,
great, but if you give money, they can stretch that dollar 5, 10
yeah,
times more than you and I can. That's the thing about food banks. They have a huge network. They can go to a
yeah.
manufacturer, they can go to a grocer and buy tons of food. So if you want to give a can, great. If you want to give money, that's even better.
I wanted to ask you because that's something. There's three things I wanted to mention slash ask you because earlier you were saying that the canola oil. It's a good thing that Carney is trying to make a deal with China, but on the other hand, it's a terrible deal for Canada. I understand that canola oil needs China because they buy something like 40% of all canola, yet our biggest customer is still the US at over 50%. But the deal that he's making is just terrible because you're talking about what I think it was something like $16 billion a year maximum that canola oil is worth altogether. Our EV market is estimated to be at least $50 billion, especially with the 2035 mandates that Carney wants to put in place. So he
Yeah.
needs China in order to meet. So, but numbers wise, it's a terrible, terrible deal for the car manufacturing in Ontario because the big companies have said themselves they cannot meet that 2035 target at all. It's not a possibility. But to you, do you think that if you had a government that actually cared about Canadians, a government that was ready to remove red tape, that was ready to do what needs to be done in Alberta, for example, like drill, and become the superpower, the energy superpower that we're supposed to be and be rich like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Do you think the same thing could happen when it comes to agro? Is there a reason stopping us from being a superpower
No,
in
there's nothing that can.
agriculture?
No, absolutely not. I just think we got lazy because of the United States. So I'm not. I don't think it's all bad what's going on right now. I think we needed Trump to wake us up. Essentially, we've been lazy. We've been lazy because we haven't been productive enough because we have the US to do all that work for us. Basically, they bought our commodities, processed them, and shipped it back to us 10 times, 20 times the price. And the Canadian dollar is weak compared to the greenback, and so we've been selling to them cheap commodities, and so all of that may actually change over the next little while, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The rupture language that Prime Minister Carney is using is incredibly reckless as far as I'm concerned, because I mean, even the European Union's central banker Lagarde did say on the weekend, or on Thursday, I believe, the day after Donald Trump spoke, she did say, I mean, there was a panel of central bankers, and most of them actually disagreed with Mark Carney, because Mark Carney actually used language like rupture, and we need to punish those who abuse their power and things like that. And Lagarde and other central bankers completely disagreed with Mark Carney. So I do think that that it is important to recognize that we have a lot of work to do, but it's absolutely not impossible to become a powerhouse. But we need alliances. So Carney's going to Brazil in March. He's going to Australia. I mean, he's going to places where, to be honest, they've been moving the needle on the agri-food space, in the agri-food space for sure. And so we need that inspiration, and we need those connections. The fact that we don't need a visa to go to China now is a big deal, because I've been to China 5-6 times, and it's a nightmare to get a visa. It takes months, and it's $400-$500 sometimes. And it really pushes people away to go there and understand China. A lot of people in Canada are commenting about China without knowing what it is and how they are and how they work. And China's complicated. Same for Brazil. I was there in June, and Brazil is a complicated place. And there's lots of judgment with the Amazon forest and what they're doing with coffee and farmers. And well, go down there, talk to people, interview people, meet farmers. understand what's going on, and you'll soon realize, wow, this the stories you hear about certain countries is not necessarily true. And so Carney is doing all that work, and we need those connections. So the problem with his agenda is that he may actually run out of time, because Trump is a fast mover, and midterms are coming up in the fall. And my guess is that he can actually pull the trigger on CUSMA sooner rather than later, before we actually do build these strong connections with other parts of the world.
And that there lies the problem. As much as I do not like Mark Carney and I don't trust him because he is a globalist, and I don't like that at all. He is, he's selling that idea that
absolutely.
that
From that school for sure. Yeah.
But he's selling the idea that the US can be replaced, and we can't. There's no way for us to replace 76% of our exports, even if I gave you 10, 20 years to do it. It's not gonna happen. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out there and try to build relationship with new people. That any businessman will want as many customers as they can in case something happens to your customer base. You want to be able to diversify, but that doesn't mean you spit in the face every single time you get of your biggest customer. That's the problem. But that's the problem that I'm seeing, is that he seems to be doing, and Stu, one of our commenters, I'm going to take his comment. Thank you for the tip, sir. I believe Carney's purposely antagonizing the US because he has little else to run on than Orange Man bad. Let's be honest here, gents. And he won. He became a PM by saying he would stand up to Trump. And every single time he does, he ends up backing down, like he did with China this week. Like it's a new world order. We need an association with China. We're going to put 100% tariffs on your goods. Oh, well, that's not really what we meant. Yeah, okay. Every time he seems, and he's not an idiot. I think we can both agree that he's not stupid. So he knows what he's doing, and I assume that everything he does is on purpose. This is what bothers me about him, and I don't see anything else than antagonizing somebody that is not scared to throw their weight around. Trump understands who he is. He is leading one of the most powerful countries on the planet, the #1 economy, and he doesn't care if he hurts you. He does not care. He does not care.
Absolutely. The globalists, I would just go back to one thing you said. Globalists don't necessarily believe that the U.S. needs to be replaced, because I mean they're good at math. You can't replace the U.S. But globalists believe we need to undermine the U.S. politically and economically. And that's a big difference, because obviously you need to be inclusive with the U.S., but you need to also show the U.S. that you have options. But the reality in the world is that, well, Europe is a mess. Asia is still up and coming, but seen as corrupt. And I mean, China is their '1 economy there, and it's a communist country with a dictatorship. That's not a good start, And so right now,
but keep that one on. But hold on, let me cut you off here, because that is one of my biggest problem that I have, is that you have a lot of liberals, or the elbows up crowd, the massive Mark Carney supporters, that are celebrating him trying to make a deal with China because they don't like Trump. And it blows my mind. I'm like, are you serious? You're calling Trump a dictator when he is not, and encouraging RPM to actually do business with a communist country ran by an actual dictator. This is how insane we've become, that we can call Trump, because people don't like Trump. Oh, he's a dictator. But it's okay. China's great. They're communist. They're run by a dictator, but I don't have a problem with that. Like, are you serious? Are you guys absolutely insane? Blows my mind.
I mean, the Trudeau legacy really has put the government into a really bad position. I mean, under Trudeau, we basically became at odds with India, China, the United States. We had some issues with Europe for a while. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And so I do appreciate that Prime Minister Carney is really was put into a very tough position. He wanted the job, mind you. He wanted the job. But right now, what I'm seeing is a thawing relationship with China, which is a big deal. And we should be pleased with what happened in China, not because it goes against the U.S., it's because I believe it gives Canada more options. Basically, I think that's why we need to be happy about. And for people who are judgmental towards the U.S., I mean, what's important here is to be as rational as possible. This is not about one person. This is about America. And I know I have many American friends. Americans are good people. They're good people, and they have a really, I would say, a strange and divisive political system with two parties. And that's what happens when you have only two parties and you're constantly in an election. You elect sheriffs, you elect judges, you elect senators, representatives, the president. Everyone's elected every 2 years. There's an election, and so things are complicated in the U.S. And of course they've had their fair share of racial conflicts. There's social unrest all the time in the U.S. And so I think we really, from a Canadian perspective, we need to be a little patient here, because Trump is the result, is the product of a very divided country. So yes, the Americans did elect Trump, but America's divided. And so they're trying to, I know many people who vote for Trump, but hate him. They hate him. They can't stand him, but they couldn't vote for the alternative either. So
Yeah.
I urge Canadians to get educated, understand America before judging, orange man bad.
I spent half my time in the US, so I know how Americans are. And, as much as we don't seem, and when I say we, I'm talking about Canadians and a lot of the people that are Mark Carney supporters that seem to believe that being Canadian is not being American. That's their definition of being a Canadian now. I don't see, you know, Canadians might hate a lot of Americans, but the average American actually like Canadians. I
Yeah.
did 30 states in the past 3.5, 4 years, and I've never been ill to receive anywhere.
But I'm very uncomfortable, Nico, when I see in the news people calling Trump this, Trump that, and
Yeah.
calling him names. And I'm extremely uncomfortable. And I wouldn't expect Americans to do that to our own prime minister. And I haven't seen an American actually call Prime Minister Carney, a pig or anything really, because you have to respect democracy. I mean, that's really important. Now, of course, people are saying, well, Trump doesn't respect democracy himself. I think of January 6th. Well, yes, the man himself is not like white as snow. I get that. But he is occupying the presidency of the United States. I'm looking at the position, not the person.
Who is white as snow? There's a very wise man that told me years ago. One of my first podcasts I ever recorded was with a microbiologist out of the University of Montreal. And he told me that there's no such thing as a great man, just great ideas.
That's right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you know what? Ever since I heard that, I tend to see people very differently. But Sylvain, thank you very much. We lost Rob, but that just means it was a more
Yeah, I don't know what
personal
happened there.
conversation.
I think it was a Nordic cat, I think.
No, he was having internet problems. He texted me.
Oh, okay.
During
Well,
the
say
show
hi to
to tell
Rob
me.
for me.
I shall, and thank you very much for joining us. As always, it's always a pleasure, even if I don't agree with you, and you definitely have no good taste in logos.
I watch you guys
Still happy to
probably
have you on.
I watch you guys every, I'd say probably second night. Yeah. You guys are
Really?
entertaining. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
You
the
may
whole
want to
point,
put it
right?
down on the swearing there, but that's okay. I mean, it's your show. You can do whatever you want.
It's how we are. It's
I
not
know.
forced.
I know. It's the caller.
There's some episodes that we don't swear. There's episodes that it just won't stop. It's all about the mood, I guess. It's all about
Yeah.
the mood. But I want to thank you again to always be ready to come on the show. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for the work that you do. And, although we might not agree on many things, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. So
Oh,
thank you
absolutely.
for being
Listen,
here, sir.
respect is the most important thing. So continue the great work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Same to you, sir.
Take care.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day. Guys, we're having some issues. Obviously, we're having some issues with Rob, but seems like we did very well without him around. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. And if you're interested, guys, it's all about showing up. It's all about coming back. Yes, we have a QR code that you can bring. You can buy us a coffee if you want. Same thing as Stu. You can give us a tip, or you can become one of our monthly members for $2.99 a month on YouTube. It's great, awesome if you do. But at the end of the day, we just want you guys to keep showing up because we want to have those conversations. We want to be able to have the conversations that most mainstream media will never have and other content creators won't have. And to kind of prove my point, I'm just going to take this comment. 1AB NDT saying thank you for having the CCFR on. I'm a gun owner. So, of course, luckily I have contacts and I'm able to get them on. Same thing, we had the NFA last week, which was great too. So, we're always going to have those great guests. And hopefully, you guys are enjoying it as much as I am because it's hard for me to believe that I get access to all of those people just because I have an audience and I ask. So I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you do. And guys, we will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. We do have another guest at 7:30 tomorrow. Jason Levine is going to join us to speak about his tour that he's been doing with Bruce Party and Nadine Wellwood around Alberta, and we're also going to talk about Alberta independence. How it's been going, because I don't know if you guys have seen the videos everywhere, but the people that are trying to have their voice heard to vote are insane. So guys, tomorrow 7:30, Jason Levine's joining us. Until then, I wish you a great night. Thank you for being here, and we shall see you tomorrow. Peace.